It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 31, looking at the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Tunisia. Part 2, the selection. Here we go! Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin and this is a continuation of Series 31 on the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is part 2 of our coverage of Tunisia's players. The final roster is released and we're looking at the selections of Tunisia. In part 1, we compiled a list of players and their likelihood of reaching the final squad. That was based mostly on their participation from after the 2023 African Cup, which took place in January of 2024, up until the October 2025 games here. We considered a few other factors as well, and we also gave some biographical / career information on the main players to help you to get to know them better. In part 2 here, our focus is on the selections, especially the final selections. Before we move on, we want to let you know that in the springtime of 2026, probably April, we will start producing episodes for the 2026 World Cup, which of course takes place in the summer. Keep an eye out then for that, or better yet, subscribe to the channel and it will notify you when episodes come out. All right, this mediacast is divided into 3 parts, just like in part 1 here, or part 1 there. Section 1 is related to team information. And then, that's preliminary information on the team before we get into our main business in part 2, which is on the players. That's where we review the list that we compiled in part 1. We're going to let you know who made the preliminary and final squad. And we're also going to try to predict starters. We did take steps towards those predictions in part 1 by providing a narrative of each position over the period. We were thinking of repeating that narrative here, but we just found it made the media cast too long. So we'll leave that to part 1. Here, what we're going to do is examine the lineups in games played after October 2025 to see if they give any further clues as to who will start. And finally, we'll make our predictions as to who the starters are going to be. Section 3 then is summarizing. We'll start with a spotlight review. That's a quick run through of the players who made the squad and our predicted starters. And we'll also review surprise selections and non-selections, any new players that were on the final squad, and updates on injuries. Okay, let's jump right into section 1. And yes, in part 1 in this team section, we talked about club affiliations of the players, the games they played over the recent period, and their preferred formations. Here we're focusing on what the team published. Most teams, we'll get into that because actually we're reversing the order of things here. We usually talk about the squad and then warm-up games, but here we're going to look at the warm-up games or the games that they've played since the end of October. They had 3 friendlies in November. Most teams just had 2, but that's good for us because we can look at the lineups to get hints of who the starters are going to be. So the first friendly was on November 12th. That was in Tunisia, and they played Mauritania. That ended in a 1-1 draw. We don't really care about the scores here. And we'll talk about that game more when we get to the manager at the beginning of section 2, because there is something to be said there. Their second friendly also played in Tunisia. This was on November 14th. Was a 3-2 win over Jordan. Kind of a warm-up for the Arab Cup, that one, because a lot of teams from the Asian Federation were involved in that. And then we have a friendly on November 18th. That was played in France against Brazil, and they tied that game 1-1. Tunisia also had the Arab Cup to contend with in December. They did not start that one well. It began with a loss to Syria on December 1st, this tournament taking place in Qatar. And in the second game, a draw with Palestine. They did better in the third game. They beat the host 3-0 there, but it wasn't enough to pass the group stage. The host Qatar actually only got 1 point in the group, so an even worse tournament for them. But neither of those two, Tunisia or Qatar, passed the group stage there. So a pretty disappointing tournament. Beyond that, they had one friendly just prior to the Cup here on December 18th. That was also in Tunisia, and they played Botswana. They won that game. So we have 4 games to look at. I just want to comment on the squad for the Arab Cup. For most teams, it's a B team squad. They really don't inform us much on the team. Maybe they inform us really on who's not on the team. But most teams did select a couple of players from their Arab Cup squads, maybe the ones who were performing well, and they made it to the Cup. But fundamentally, it's a B team in the Arab Cup. Not so true for Tunisia. They used a lot of their players in the Arab Cup. I wouldn't really say they're starters, though. Biggest names seem to be off the squad, the players we expect to start. But they did use many players. A lot of the players that we think will be backup players in the African Cup were starters in the Arab Cup. So I'd say about half of the squad will be playing in both cups there. And considering their poor performance there, that's not a good result going into the African Cup here. Okay, so that's the warm-up games. We're really just going to be looking at the friendlies there, because again, the Arab Cup doesn't really tell us much about who will be starting. Now, to get back to the squad, most teams, or every team, had to submit a 55-man roster, 55 players or less, to CAF, the organizers of the tournament. In 2023, CAF released these rosters, but this time they didn't. They left it up to the individual team. Some teams felt there were some negative effects by the publishing of those rosters. However, for most of the teams, we have been able to come up with the 55-player preliminary roster, and we were for Tunisia as well. So 55 players, and they have to cut that down to 28 players. They're allowed to bring 28 players to the tournament. So they'll have to cut half of the players from that roster. So let's move on to section 2 to see who these players were. And we begin by talking about the manager. Well, in terms of selection, in part 1, we kind of used this opportunity to go through the history of the team and the manager over the past few years. So we won't repeat all that here. We'll just say that the manager has not changed between then and now. And so we can consider Sami Trabelsi a successful selection for the squad. However, we do want to say something about the friendlies here. So in the first friendly against Mauritania, the manager put out quite an experimental squad. It actually gives us good insight into the lineup for the Cup. Basically, the players who start in it seem to be the backup players in the position if they survive, because several of them were cut. And a bit like a negative camera image, that game also indicates the starters, because the likely or definite candidates who did not start the game, we think will be starters in the Cup. And in fact, they generally were the starters over the following 3 friendlies. So we think we're getting a pretty good understanding of the manager's thinking here, and we're able to be quite confident in our predictions here. Okay, so Sami Trabelsi leading them through the tournament. Let's move on to goalkeepers here. And we begin with definite candidate Eamon Daman. He was selected for the final squad. we had two candidates at the likely level, Bashir Ben Saeed, who was selected for the squad, and also Nuruddin Farhati, he too making the final cut there. So we have three goalkeepers. The possible but unlikely level, we had two candidates. Neither of them even made the preliminary squad there. That was Sami Hilal and Abdesalam Halawi. However, one of our three players who we have seemingly off the squad did make the preliminary squad, and that was Amanala Mamish making the preliminary squad. The second one, Moez Ben Sharifa, not making the cut. The third one, Muez Hassan, also making the preliminary squad. And I lied to you, we have four. Ali Jamal also on the list, but not making the preliminary squad there. We have a new player, and surprisingly, he actually made the final cut. So Tunisia is bringing four goalkeepers to the cup. That does seem a bit too much, but there we have it. Some teams are doing that nowadays. This goalkeeper is Sabri Ben Hassan. Sabri Ben Hassan, and we'll introduce him because we didn't do so in part one. We weren't aware of him. Sabri Ben Hassan is 29 years old, so no spring chicken. He doesn't have any caps for Tunisia. He plays for Etoile or Etoile du Sahel in Tunisia since 2025. That's a recent move from Sfaxian, where he was for 12 long years before that. And he got his first appearance on the bench in October 2025. He didn't start any games, but he was on the bench for, I guess he got his start in October of 2024, judging by the numbers here, because I have him being on the bench for 5 games, including the last 3, and not selected for 10 other games. So we actually should have had him on our list in part 1, but we're presenting him as a new candidate here. Sabri Ben Hassan surprisingly making the squad, I would say. All right, let us go back and again, we're not going to repeat the narrative on the position over the past 2 years, but we'll just tell you our outcome. We didn't actually talk about starters in part 1, but we did write down what we thought in preparation for part 2 here. So what came out of it was that we have had Eamon Daman as a definite starter for the tournament here. But let's see if the recent games change our thinking. In the first game there against Mauritania, it was Nuruddin Farhati starting that game, as we saw that, or as we'll see, that's an experimental squad there. For the 3 others, it was Eamon Daman starting all 3 of those games. So that reinforces our conviction that Eamon Daman is going to be the starter. And we're going to indicate that by using stars. 3 stars for a definite prediction, 2 stars for a likely, and 1 star for a possible. So putting all of our bet behind Eamon Daman there. A little difficult to predict who the backup is going to be, and that's not really the purpose here. We think it could be either Bashir Ben Saeed, who has more experience, or Nuruddin Farhati, who started that game in November. Okay, let's move on to central defenders, or to the defense in general and central defenders specifically. And here we had a definite candidate in Montasar Talbi. He was selected for the final squad. We have 3 likely candidates on our list. The first one, Yassine Maria, who was selected. The second one, Dylan Braun, also selected. But the third one, Ala Graham, just making the preliminary squad there. No candidates at the possible level, so we move down to our 2 possible but unlikely candidates, and they did not make even the preliminary squad. That is Hamza Ben Abda and Marouane Sarawi. Both of those not even on the 55-man preliminary squad. We have no new candidates to introduce here, so that's a very thin central defence there. Let's go back and see what we thought at the end of part one. Well, we viewed Montasar Talbi as a definite starter, and Dylan Braun and Yassine Meria as possible starters. We slightly favoured Braun over Meria, given the participation towards the end of the period there. Let's take a look at the game. So the first friendly against Mauritania, again, a bit of an experimental match. We do see Meria starting alongside left back Usama Haddadi starting that game. So we're thinking they need some coverage here. The three players is very few central defenders to bring to the cup. So maybe they're viewing Haddadi as a backup. Having said that, I don't think he was selected for the squad. We'll see when we get to left backs. It also suggests that Meria may be more of a backup here. In the second game in November, it was the familiar pairing of Talbi and Braun starting, and for the third and fourth game it was those two, and Meria joined them in a three-man defence for that. Okay, so I think they're in a bit of trouble here if any of those players get injured. Let's go to the left back position, and I didn't make our final prediction there. Well, because there are just three players, we'll adjust it slightly with Montasar Talbi as a definite starter, Dylan Braun as a likely starter, and Yassine Meria as a possible starter. I'm almost tempted, sorry, we got to go back here. I'm almost tempted to up that because there are really no other options. Maybe Dylan Braun as a definite starter, and Yassine Meria as a likely starter. But anyway, we'll stick with what we got there, and it could be all three of them on the pitch, as we saw in the last two games. Okay, I'm all over the place in my graphics here. Let's settle on left backs. And here we have a definite candidate in Ali Abdi, who was selected for the final squad. We had no candidates at the likely level, and at the possible level we had Mohammed Amin Ben Hamida. He wasn't even selected for the preliminary squad there. However, our possible but unlikely candidate was, that's Amin Chemi, but only for the preliminary squad, Amin Chemi. And yes, I was right. Here we have Usama Haddadi, who did start game one. He was seemingly off the squad, so he was brought back in there, but not selected for the final squad. We're going to see that a few times coming up. Players who we have seemingly off the squad, brought back in for that game, and then not selected. However, our seemingly off the squad, Ali Maloul, was selected for the final squad. And so there we have it, Ali Abdi and Ali Maloul, the left backs. We do have one new candidate as well, Adam Arous, making the final squad. I'll tell you a little bit about him here. He's 19 years old and plays for Kasimpasa in Turkey. That's a recent move in 2025 from Stade Tunisian in Tunisia. He is brand new to the squad, never selected prior to being named to the preliminary squad here. Adam Arous, so he'll probably be on the bench. However, given the central defender situation, one never knows. Maybe three candidates over here with the intentions of them being able to cover a central defense if they need to. Okay, let's go to what we thought at the end of part one. And well, Ali Maloul and Adam Arous were not in the picture here. There didn't seem to be any backups for this position, so we had Ali Abdi as a definite starter. When we look at the games that they've played since then, Ali Maloul Ali Maloul came back from the cold. He started the first friendly there, again an experimental game. He had surprised us actually in the last African Cup. We thought Ali Abdi would start, but it was Maloul starting game one. And then Ali Abdi came in. So that could happen here too. But now as then, Ali Maloul started the first friendly and Ali Abdi took the reins and started the last three matches there. So we end with thinking of Ali Abdi as the definite starter here and Ali Maloul as the backup, perhaps even backup in central defence as well. So we're going to put 3 stars beside Ali Abdi and no stars beside Ali Maloul. Although if Tunisia do go further into the tournament, we wouldn't be surprised if he did get some starts. Okay, let's go to the right side. And here we have a definite no definite candidate. I'm sorry. We have a likely candidate. It's Jan Valery, and he was selected for the final squad. And then we have a possible candidate, Moussaf Natafi. Let me say that again. It's Mutaz Nafati. He was not selected even for the preliminary squad. A lot of our possible candidates not being selected here, but our first possible but unlikely candidate was selected, at least for the preliminary squad. That's Mahmoud Gorbel. And we had another possible but unlikely candidate, Hussein Hassan Romdane, who was not selected even for the preliminary squad. But an injury played a role in that. We don't know what it would have been without the injury, but he's out with a cruciate ligament injury since early November, and he's out until May of 2026, and nothing has changed in that prognosis, so wasn't even available to be put on the preliminary squad there. We have 4 players seemingly off the squad, and 3 of them made it to the preliminary squad. The first one is Wajdi Keshrida, who was selected for the preliminary squad. He had, like all of these players, been seemingly off the squad. Hamza Mathlouthi also selected for the preliminary squad. And the last player on that list, Gaith Zalouni, also selected for the preliminary squad. The only one who wasn't was Raid Bouchniba, and not selected even for the preliminary squad there. So just one candidate over here, but wait, we actually have a couple of players to introduce. The first one, Mohammed Ben Ali, was selected for the final squad, so we will introduce him. The other one is Mohamed Draga. Mohamed Draga has been involved in several tournaments for Tunisia and was named to the preliminary squad, but didn't make the final cut there. Let's take a look at the new candidate then, who was selected. Mohamed Ben Ali is 30 years old, but brand new to Tunisian national team since 2025, with 3 caps and 1 goal. And he plays for Espérance in Tunisia. There and was with Sfaxian before that. So new to the squad here, started 1 game and appeared on the bench in 1 game for the last 3 games that he was available. He did also play in the FIFA Arab Cup. He scored a goal there, so was called up for both tournaments here. So Mohamed... sorry, I'm just making a correction that I see. Mohamed Ben Ali, then the backup probably for this position. But let's go and look at the predictions here at the end of part 1. We consider Jan Valery a likely starter, and our possible but unlikely candidate Mahmoud Gorbel as a possible starter. To be honest, I'm not sure the reasons why, but we did talk about that in part 1. Anyway, it was newcomer Mohamed Ben Ali starting the first match there, the experimental match, so we're coming to expect that kind of thing now. And then Jan Valery starting the next three. So that seems to be the pattern. The backup starting the first one and the starter starting the next three. And as we saw, Mahmoud Gorbel, we have to take off the list because he was not selected. So now we have Jan Valery as a definite starter here, and we'll give him all 3 stars. Mohammed Ben Ali, we don't think he'll be a possible starter, at least in the first game, but like Ali Malul, if they go far into the tournament, he may get a start during the tournament. Okay, that's it for the defense. And we move on to the midfield, and we're going to look at defensive midfielders first. And here we had no candidate at the definite level, but a likely candidate in Ferjani Sassi, and he was selected for the squad. In fact, he's the captain of the team going into this cup. And we have 2 possible candidates. Both of them were selected for the final squad. It's Nader Gandri and Haj Mahmoud. There, both of those selected. We had 2 candidates at the possible but unlikely. The first one, Husam Taka, was selected for the final squad. But the other one, Moez Haj Ali, just making the preliminary squad there. And then seemingly off the squad, Hamza Jalasi was at least selected for the preliminary squad. And we have no new candidates here. But before we talk about predictions, we'll also introduce the central midfielders. Probably the biggest news of all for Tunisia here is Aissa Leidouni, just selected for the preliminary squad because of injury, and injury keeping him out of the cup. So a big loss for Tunisia there. He was at the definite level. At the likely level, we have Elias Skiri, and he was selected for the squad. Possible candidate, Anis Ben Slimane, all continuing a tradition of possible players just making the... Oh no, he made the preliminary squad. We had possible players not even making that. Anis Ben Slimani only named to the preliminary squad there. And then we have 3 candidates seemingly off the squad, and none of them made even the preliminary squad there. So that's Galen Chalali, the first one. The second one, Mutez Zadem, and finally Idris Al-Mizouni, none of those making the preliminary squad. We do have 1 player to add to the list, although he just made the preliminary squad, and that is Sami Chuchane, or Sami Chuchane. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but we won't need to know how because he didn't make the final squad there. Okay, let's now go and look at what we think in terms of our predictions. At the end of part 1, we had Aissa Leidouni as a definite starter, and then as possible starters for Ferjani Sassi and Elias Skiri. But they'll have to do without him and reorganize things in the middle. Aissa Leidouni, a huge loss for them there. In the first game, we had left attacking midfielder Mohammed Ben Romdane, alongside Hussein Teka starting. And again, we consider those backup players. I don't think Ben Ramadan made the squad. We'll see because he's up in the next section. Anyway, Teka probably a backup for the position. Ramadan did start there at times over the period, but he drifted off the team from being a starter. Actually, so did Hannibal Mejbri, though he drifted into being more of an attacking midfielder, but he did start the second friendly alongside Elias Skiri. Ferjani Sassi was only a sub in those 2 games, but he did start the third, in a three-man midfield alongside Skiri and Hannibal Mejbri, and that threesome carried into the fourth game as well. So a three-man midfield, Skiri, Hannibal and Sassy. So how does that affect our predictions? Well, we're going to put all three of them as likely starters here. Perhaps even starting together. So Ellis Skiri, a likely starter. And sorry, we got to go back to defensive midfielders to find Ferjani Sassi. And Hannibal Mejbri is coded as an attacking midfielder. We left him there because it does seem more his natural position. But we'll just go up the list here and put a couple of stars beside him here. Okay, that's it for the central midfield. Let's move on upfield to the attacking midfield and begin with left attackers. So we had no definite candidates for left attackers, but a likely candidate in Elias Achuri. We actually moved him over from the right side. That's what he's coded as, a right attacking midfielder. But we moved him over here, and he was selected for the final squad, Elias Achuri, actually the first of three likely candidates. The second one is Ismail Garbi, and he was also selected. And so too was our third one, Elias Saad, selected for the final squad. Two candidates at the possible level, and I was wrong, actually. Mohammed Ben Romdane was selected for the final squad. And but the second one, Saifala Lateef, only making the preliminary squad. We had two players off the seemingly off the squad. The first one is veteran Yusuf Msakni, and he was not selected for the final squad. This must be the first time. He's probably done 10 or more tournaments in a row, Yusuf Msakni. So it'll be weird to not see him on the pitch there. He was only selected for the preliminary squad. The other seemingly off the squad, Ali Youssef, was not selected even for the preliminary squad. And we have one new candidate here, Hamza Kadrawi, but he just made the preliminary squad there, Hamza Kadrawi. Okay, that is it for going through the candidates. Let's take a look at the predictions then. After part one, we had Elias Achuri and Elias Saad as possible starters over here. A bit of uncertainty in the forward position because we do see various players coming in and out, including out of position players. Let's see, though, what happened over the recent games. It was actually secondary striker Issam Jabali returning from an absence to start the first friendly. And we saw this earlier, truly an experiment, because brought in from out of the cold, given a start, and then not selected for the squad, Issam Jabali. In the second game, it was Elias Saad starting in the position. And then the position of left attacking midfielder was not used in games 3 and 4. It was a 3-5-2 formation. No, it wasn't. It was a 5-3-2 formation, which they had used in 20% of their games over the past 2 years. However, Elias Saad did start on the field. He started as a co-forward in games 3 and 4. So Elias Saad seems to be becoming a more important player. He had only started 5 of their 18 games during the past 2 years that we examined in part 1. But now here he is starting all 3 of the friendlies in the lead up to the cup. So Elias Saad perhaps moving on up there. So we're revising our prediction to put Elias Saad as a starter. We'll put him as the likely starter here, but we think he may start as a forward as well. So we're going to consider him a definite starter on the field somewhere. We'll give him 1 star when we get to the forward line. Elias Ashuri just gets a possible here as a possible starter. He too may also start somewhere else in the attack. Okay, that's it for the left side. Let's look at right attackers next and begin with the candidates we had. So here too, no candidate at the definite level, but at the likely level, we have Naeem Sliti. Naeem Sliti was selected for the final squad. And we have 2 candidates at the possible level, Amor Leouni, who only made the preliminary squad there, and Sebastian Tunekti, who did make the final squad there. 3 candidates that are seemingly off the squad, all of them making the preliminary but not the final squad. The first one is Hamza Rafia, and then we have Bassem Srarfi, and finally Raki Aouni. All of those making the preliminary squad. We have 1 new candidate as well, just at the preliminary squad though, Nassim Rendani, making the preliminary squad. So he's just 19 years old and perhaps a name to keep an eye on for the future. Okay, let's look at the position at the end of part 1. We were very reluctant to name a starter because we saw various players coming in and out of this position over the period. So we're just going to say it could be anyone, including Sliti and Tukneti. They were among the players who got single starts in the period. For example, in the last 4 games, it was 4 different players there, including Sliti and Tunekti there. So let's see if things, if the recent games influences us. Yes, as I said, the position was unstable over the period. In the first friendly, we again see a player that was brought in from the cold for 1 game, given a start and then not selected, just as we saw with Jebali on the other side, Issam Jebali. Ironically, this player was also called Jebali. This one is Chihab Jebali, and we didn't even put him on his list because he came and went so quickly. Okay, so in game 2, it was left attacking midfielder Amor Leouni. We have him on our list over here because he started more on the left than on the right. The same is true of Tunekti, actually. But that really only suggests that Leouni... No, it doesn't. It's another player coming in and out of the position. The position was not used in games 3 and 4 because of that 5-3-2 formation. So again, we really can't nail down a position. So we're actually going to make a prediction here that it will be anyone. It could be a various player, or that was our prediction at the end of part 1, various players, including Sliti and Tukneti. We're going to even say we think that's likely, that it could be a variety of players throughout the cup here. So we're going to put that down here as our prediction. Various players at the likely prediction there. We don't think they're going to nail it down to anyone. Okay, let's go to central attack. Here is where we meet Hannibal Neshri. We could have put him in the midfield, but we do see him as a bit more of an attacking player, so we left him up here. And he was selected for the final squad. We see already 2 stars beside him. So we think he could be a starter in central midfield. Now we're going to put 3 stars beside him because we think he could be a starter up here. I'm getting ahead of myself a bit, though. I'm supposed to introduce the candidates first. Anyway, definite candidate Hannibal Mejbri was selected for the squad. The first of our possible candidates, Firas Ben Larbi, only selected for the preliminary squad there. The second one, Mortada Ben Uwains, was selected for the final squad. And then we had one candidate seemingly off the squad, that is Faisal Mane. Faisal Mane not even making the preliminary squad there, and no new candidates to introduce here. So let's talk about this position. They used it once in the previous African Cup, and 3 times in the period that we look from after that African Cup to October 2025. So they only use it about a little more, 25 to 30% of the time here. And our predictions were that if they use the position, it would either be Hannibal Mejbri or Yusuf Msakni. So we had them as possible starters. In the games here, well, true to form, 25% on one of the 4 games they did use this position. It was the 4-2-3-1 formation of the first game, but it was an experimental player, Firas Ben Larbi, and as we saw, Ben Larbi ended up not being selected. The position was not used otherwise. Okay, well, we have to take Yusuf Msakni off the list here. So we're going to put Hannibal Mejbri as a possible starter here. We will, well, we have him with 2 stars in the central midfield, so we'll put 1 star for him here. But really our thinking here is the position will likely not be used. So we're going to put 2 stars beside that because we think that's more possible. If they do use it, we favor Hannibal Mejbri, but we think they won't. Okay, that's it. Let's go on to the forward line, our last category. No, it isn't, because we have a couple of players coded as secondary strikers who we should deal with. Both of them are at the seemingly off the squad level. The first one is Anas Haj Mohammed, and he was selected for the preliminary squad there. The second is a player we've met, Issam Jebali, who started as a left attacking midfielder in the first friendly, but as we said then, not selected for the final squad. Just for the preliminary squad there, Issam Jebali. And now we can move on to forwards. We do have a definite candidate here. It's Hazem Mastouri. Hazem Mastouri was selected for the final squad. We have a likely candidate in Firas Chawat. Firas Chawat was selected also. No candidates at the possible level, but at the possible but unlikely level, Safadine Jaziri, who was selected for the final squad. So a bit of a surprise there. We also have 4 players seemingly off the squad. Only one of them making the preliminary squad, and that is the first one, Haytham Jouini. He made the preliminary squad, but the other 3 not even making the preliminary squad. It is Taha Yassin Khanisi and Nabil Makni and Bilal Mejri. None of those players even making the preliminary squad, and no new candidates to introduce here. So we are predicting the starters here on the front line. So at the end of part 1, we had Hazem Mastouri as a likely starter and Firas Chawat as a possible starter. All right, well, this position was very unstable in the last cup and over most of the period, but towards the end, Hazem Mastouri began to nail it down, and Chawat seemed to be the backup, which is what led to our predictions. Firas Chawat started the first game, so that almost confirms he is the backup, and then Hazem Mastouri started the last 3 games. So almost confirming that he is the intended starter. And as we've seen in the last 2 games, he was partnered with Elias Saad there. So Elias Saad starting as a forward twice. So we are going to double down a little bit on Hazem Mastouri. We're going to put him as the definite starter here and give him 3 stars there. And we consider Chauat as a possible starter, so we'll give him 1 star. And we're going to go back and get Elias Saad and put him up here with, well, we'll call it an equal chance with Chauat, but actually we think it might be a little bit more likely even there. So Elias Saad with 1 star for starting as a forward. All right, that brings us to the end of section 2 on our big look at the players, and we move into section 3, where we want to welcome listeners to the short version of our mediacast here. We're going to begin here with our spotlight review. That may be all we have time for in the short version, but if we do have time, we'll look at injuries and surprise selections. But anyway, our main order of business right now is the spotlight review, a race through the squad, reviewing what we've covered in section 2 of this mediacast, but actually kind of summarizing what we covered in parts 1 and 2 in creating the list, predicting the likelihood of making the final squad, and then in part 2, this mediacast focusing more on predicting starters. So we have manager Sami Trabelsi, and we will consider him a successful selection here. So he is leading them through the tournament. Next, we have goalkeepers, a definite candidate in Eamon Daman, and then he was selected for the final squad. And 2 likely candidates, Bashir Ben Saeed and Nuruddin Farhati, both of those selected for the final squad. We're not going to talk about players below the possible but unlikely level unless they made the squad. And we do actually have a new candidate making the squad here, Sabri Ben Hassan, selected for the squad. So they're bringing 4 goalkeepers to the cup. In terms of predicted starters, we put all of our weight behind Eamon Daman. We're confident that he's going to be the starter. Okay, moving on to defence and central defence. We have a definite candidate in Montasar Talbi, who was selected for the final squad, and 3 likely candidates. The first 2 were selected, Yassine Mariah and Dylan Braun. But the third one, Ala Graham, was not selected for the squad, just the preliminary squad there for him. And that's it, no new candidates. So very slim in central defence. Usually there's 5 or 6 candidates, but just the 3 here. So we're a bit worried if any of them gets injured, what they'll do. Anyway, in terms of predictions, we think Montasar Talbi will definitely be a starter. Dylan Braun likely a starter, and Yassine Maria a possible starter there. Over we go to the left back position. We have a definite candidate in Ali Abdi, who was selected for the final squad. No candidate at the likely level, but possible candidate Mohammed Amin Ben Hamida, not selected even for the preliminary squad there. However, a player that was seemingly off the squad, Ali Malul, coming back in from the cold and being selected to the final squad. In terms of starters here, we think Ali Abdi is definitely going to be the starter. Oh, sorry, we do have a new candidate at left back as well. So 3 names over here. The new candidate is Adam Arous, also a left back. Okay, let's go to the right back position. And we have no candidates at the definite level. Jan Valery is our likely candidate. He was selected for the squad. He's going to be the only one until we get to the new candidates here. At the possible level, we have Mutaz Nafati, who was not even selected for the preliminary squad. Oh, and we're going to skip over 6 names below that level, all the way down to the new candidate, Mohammed Ben Ali. Was selected, the only other selection over here. So we have Jan Valery and Mohammed Ben Ali. So we think Jan Valery is definitely going to be the starter. But like Ali Malul on the left side, we view Mohammed Ben Ali as the backup. So he may get a start, especially if Tunisia goes far into the tournament. All right. Things looking pretty predictable here for Tunisia. Let's move on to the midfield and look at our candidates coded as defensive midfielders. So we begin with likely candidate Virjani Sassi, who was selected for the squad. So too were our 2 possible candidates, Nader Gandri and Haj Mahmoud. Both of those making the final cut there. And even one of our possible but unlikely candidates, Husam Tekka, selected for the final squad there. Before we talk about predicted starters, we'll introduce the central midfielders. And here we have a definite candidate in Aissa Leidouni, but bad news for Tunisia. He was only selected for the preliminary squad and is out with injury. Our likely candidate, Elias Shkiri, was selected for the final squad, but possible candidate Anis Ben Slimane not selected, only for the preliminary squad there. And that's it. Okay, now we can look at predictions. We think in the absence of Leidouni, who we thought would be a definite starter, we are putting Virjani Sassi, Elias Shkiri, and I thought we had another one. I think it's attacking midfielder Hannibal Mejri as a likely starter over here. Well, we'll deal with that when we get to the attacking midfielders. But for now, we give you Virjani Sassi and Elias Shkiri as likely starters. Let's move on upfield to attacking midfielders. We begin with left attackers, where there are no definite candidates on our list, but 3 likely candidates, all of them making the final cut. The first one is Elias Ashuri, and the second, Ismail Garbi, and the third one, Elias Saad, all of them making the final cut. And also our first possible candidate here, Mohammed Ben Romdane, also making the squad there. So 4 candidates over here, and we have noted that Elias Saad and Elias Achuri sometimes play in different positions at the attacking end of the field. In terms of predictions here, we're putting Elias Saad as a likely candidate for starting on this side, and we are going to put him as a definite candidate for starting somewhere on the field, because Elias Saad might also start as a forward. Elias Ashuri, though, has been playing a bit less in the recent games, so we just give him a possible starter indication there. Over to the right attack, we had a likely candidate in Naeem Sliti. He was selected for the squad. We had 2 possible candidates. The first one, Amor Leuni, just selected for the preliminary squad, but Sebastian Tunekti making the final cut there. However, in terms of predictions on this side, we're actually fairly confident that it's going to be a variety of players. Nobody has really nailed down the position. In addition to these 2 players, Sliti and Tunekti, we have various players coming in from other positions to start. So we're actually fairly firm in our conviction that it won't be that it'll be a variety of players. We're saying that with the conviction of likelihood. We put a likely tag on that. Okay, let's go to central attackers. Here is where we meet Hannibal Mejri. and he's a definite candidate. He was selected for the final squad. And then we had two possible candidates over here. Firas Ben Larbi, he just made the preliminary squad, but the other one, Mortada Ben Uenis, did make the final cut there. In terms of predictions, we think Hannibal Mejbri is a possible starter in this position. That's because we think it's more likely that they don't use the position. But in terms of starting somewhere on the field, we think Hannibal Mejbri is a definite. I'm wondering how to indicate that. Maybe putting in brackets that he's a 3-star, confident he's going to start. Finally, we look at the forward line. We had a definite candidate in Hazem Mastouri, and he was selected for the final squad. And we had a likely candidate in Firas Chauat, also selected for the final squad. We had no candidates at the possible level, but at the possible but unlikely level, Sefadine Jaziri, who was selected for the final squad there. So 3 candidates up here. You might, if you're watching the YouTube, see Elias Saad on the list here. We're just adding him here because we think he's at the possible level of being a starter as a forward. So he could start on the left side or he could start as a forward. But we give 3 stars here to Hazem Mastouri. We think he's definitely going to be a starter. We're actually between definite and likely with that, but we decided to be bold. And then we give Elias Saad and Firas Chauat kind of an even chance at the possible level of being starters. We also think it's possible that they'll go with 2 forwards, a two-man forward line there. Okay, that brings us to the end of our Spotlight review. And we move on to talk about surprises, beginning with surprise non-selections. Well, the first one has to be Aissa Leidouni, but we're going to talk about that in the injury section, but it's definitely a surprise there. The next one is central defender Ala Graham. We thought he was a likely candidate, and certainly 3 central defenders is very few to bring to the Cup, so that's part of the reason we thought he was a likely selection. But no, he only made the preliminary squad, Ala Graham. Next, we look at surprise inclusions. So the first one is left back Ali Malul. He actually was part of the last African Cup, but over the period was off the squad, seemingly off the squad there, but called back here and selected for the final squad. Next is defensive midfielder Husam Teka. And we had him as a possible but unlikely candidate, but he was selected for the final squad. And finally, also at the possible but unlikely level in part 1, but Sefadine Jaziri, the forward, also making the final cut there. So 3 surprise inclusions. And then also 3 new names, new players added to the squad. In truth, the first one, Sabri Ben Hassan, the goalkeeper, the 4th goalkeeper, so they bring in 4 keepers, who was selected. In truth, he should have been on our list for part 1. There, so not as new a player as all that. Anyway, we're introducing him as a new player because we didn't have him on our list in part 1. That's goalkeeper Sabri Ben Hassan. Next, we have right back Mohammed Ben Ali, new to the squad there, even though he is 30 years old. And then we have left back Adam Arous. He's just 19 years old. And added to the squad. So all of those defensive, no new players introduced in the positions further upfield. Let's look at our injury list, and we'll begin by looking at the list that we ended up with in part 1, and we just had 2 players on that list. We'll see if there's anything to update there. The first one was Sefala Latef. the left attacking midfielder Sefala Latef. He was out with an unknown injury since mid-November and an unknown return date. However, there is an update on that. He remained injured until December 14th, but was on the bench for his club, that's Sparta Rotterdam, on December 21st. But all of those were after the selection of the squad, so we're really not sure if his injury played a role in the squad. He was named to the preliminary squad there, but not the final cup. We're not confident enough to say he was dropped due to injury, but because he was just a possible candidate, we're going to say he was injured but not a strong candidate. The team must have known that he was on the road to recovery there. The other player at the end of part one is Hussam Hassan Ramadan. And he was out with a ligament injury since early November, and the prognosis that he was out until May 2026. So we knew there was very little chance of that changing enough for him to make it to the Cup. And indeed, he was not even selected for the preliminary squad. That prognosis remains the same. So he's a long-term injury. He was at the possible but unlikely level too. So we'll also say that he was not a strong candidate, so not a big loss for them there. New injuries. Well, the big one is, of course, Aissa Leidouni. So let's tell you about his injury. He was injured since early November, so shortly after the October games, up to which we examined in part one. And he was out with an unknown injury with an unknown return date. Oh no, he wasn't. We didn't know about that in part one. That is where it's at now. He is out with an unknown injury and an unknown return date. Regardless, it put him out of the Cup because he definitely would have been selected, but for the injury. And so we move him to dropped due to injury. Okay, well, that is it. We don't have any closing thoughts we have a burning need to talk about. So we're going to conclude the media cast here. We hope you've enjoyed our look at Tunisia's players and that you join us for our next piece. We would like to thank Pixabay and Cold Singers for the wonderful music used in this media cast. The title of the piece is Eid Mubarak.